I'm lucky enough to be a father of 3 boys and 1 beautiful girl. I want my daughter Harper to have the same opportunities as her brothers, and that should be the case for all girls everywhere.
David Beckham is sharing his sweet hopes for daughter Harper and how she has inspired his humanitarian work. The proud dad and iconic soccer player was honored with the Crystal Award for his cultural impact and humanitarianism, and mentioned his family during his acceptance speech.
I'm lucky enough to be a father of 3 boys and 1 beautiful girl. I want my daughter Harper to have the same opportunities as her brothers, and that should be the case for all girls everywhere. Being a girl shouldn't determine what you can do, where you can go, and who you can become. Today's 600 million adolescent girls are the largest generation of future leaders and innovators that the world has ever known. What an exciting prospect if we can unlock their potential and support their development.
During a separate interview, he was asked about the 7 Fund, which is a charitable initiative he launched aimed at helping children around the world, particularly girls. While sharing a story about his travels, he spoke about how the work is influenced by his teenage daughter, Harper.
During that time, I also noticed how girls were getting left behind. And that is one thing, obviously having a daughter myself and seeing how girls get left behind, and they don't have, equal access to education and to healthcare, and they are forced into early marriage, which then takes them out of their education. So I wanted to focus the next few years on that, and that's what I'm focusing, on this year. Teenage girls, empowering them, to live to their full potential. They should have the right and the same access as the boys do. I'm not saying that I'm stepping away from helping the boys, but my main focus is the girls, because when you empower a young girl, it uplifts them, it uplifts their family, it uplifts their communities, and that's good for everybody. That's good for the world, and that's one thing that we're focused on.
The athlete has been a Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF since 2005. He spoke about a recent experience he had while working in India and how seeing work being done at a women's center there was inspiring.
India really opened my eyes, because these young people were championing for change. And I went to this women's centre that these girls were incredible, talented, driven, and it was inspiring.
Elsewhere in the interview, he gushed about not only Harper, but also his 3 sons, Brooklyn, Romeo, and Cruz, who he shares with wife Victoria, and how he tries to instill the same values in them.
Mine and Victoria's children have grown up totally different to how we grew up, but we instilled from a very young age the right values. My sons, you'll never see my sons walk into a room and not let a lady go through the door first, or shake people's hand,
because
or
that's what you did.
Be engaged. That's what I did. So, whether you think your children are watching or listening, they are, most of the time. And luckily for me, my children have noticed, when my wife leaves the table, I stand up. It's old traditions like that I have tried to pass on to my children, and thankfully, they've turned out great. And me and Victoria are very proud of our children, not because they have their own dreams and ambitions and they're working and they're doing exactly what they want to do, but more because of the values that they have. And let's hope they continue.
He also gushed about his children when asked about their reaction to the Netflix documentary Beckham that told his story as a star athlete and also featured his family life.
None of us had seen it until the premiere. So because I made that conscious decision to give that power to Fisher Stevens, the director, and Netflix and my team. My team had seen clips, but, the edit, I wanted them to have full control, because I think that was important, and it came out in it. So we sat there at the premiere, and I could see one of my sons getting quite emotional, Brooklyn, because he lived through that whole time. He's 25 years old, so he'd lived through every moment of my career and, mine and Victoria's relationship. Then you had Romeo that was 19 years old, no, that was 20 years old at the time, And I could see him, and he said, Dad, you and Mum worked really hard to get where you are. Then Cruz, my youngest boy, turned around to me and he said, Dad, you were really good at football. That was his reaction. I was like, yeah, well, Dad used to do that. Sorry. And Harper was just, I mean, Harper sat there, and she was probably the one, as well as Brooklyn, that I was probably most worried about watching it, because he'd lived through the whole thing, and, you know, there's some moments where you see him crying in the car because of the amount of people around the car and the paparazzi. So I was worried on that side for him, but then I was also worried for Harper because, you know, it's the first time that she'd seen all of that. So, you know, but they loved it. And the moment at the end where people all talk about, you know, the moment where Mum and Dad are dancing in the tent and embarrassing them, you know, that was a moment where I look back and it just naturally happened. You know, we'd been in the tent.
That dancing went viral.
It went viral, I know. And it was, you know, that was one of the most rewarding moments for me. Seeing, you know, people in their kitchens doing the same. You know, seeing them do it with their children or their parents or their animals. You know, all of those things happen through that moment, and you know, and that was just a natural moment that actually happens most weekends. You know, Mum and Dad always embarrass the kids at the end of the night. You guys dance
most weekends?
Yeah, yeah. You know, after a couple of drinks.
Goals.
Couple of drinks.
After a couple of drinks.